Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
To the Free-for-All-Friday edition, and you know what today is, don't you, folks?
Finally Friday, I'm free again. I got my motor running for a wild weekend. It's finally Friday, I'm out of control. Forget the working blues and let the good times roll. Finally Friday, I'm free again. I got my motor running for a wild weekend. It's finally
Well, welcome to the Friday edition of the Dan Clemens Show, a Christian political talk show. This is episode 743. I'm your host, Dan Clemens, your constitutional warrior fighting for your right just to be an American. It is February 24th, the year of our Lord 2017. Remember, we are a hyphen-free, PC-free zone. God is still in control, and He does love you. And I'm broadcasting live from the Hemlock Studios here in the beautiful, sunny Central Susquehanna Valley in the Great Keystone State. And if you want to call into the show, I know we have some call-ins every now and then. The call-in number is 657-383-1398, 657-383-1398. The chat room is open. Good morning, Dave. Good morning, Bruce. Good morning, kids. Oh, my. Folks, it's been a good week. I am tired and I am sore. Most of you know, and I try not to harp on it too much, but most of you know I have fibromyalgia and it's not going good. I'm getting better sleep with the medication I'm on, and I'm recovering faster. But in that recovery, I'm also, when I go to work and do my job, I'm also the pain is scaling up quicker and staying at a higher peak. Just to give you for instance, during the day, like when I wake up or I'm just going around just doing some normal stuff like show prep and things like that, I'm at a 3 or 4 on a scale of 1 to 10. When I get to work, about an hour after I start working, my pain level scales up to about a 7 or 8 and stays there until I either take a break, like a 10-minute break, or my half-hour lunch break. It'll scale back a little bit, but as soon as I go back to work, it goes right back up. And then it's an hour or so after work before it goes back down to 3 or 4. 7, 8 is getting pretty intense for me, and it's something I struggle with, and I guess I'm just going to have to continue to struggle with that. But I don't want to quit doing the show, and I'm not going to. I don't have any plans in the future to quit doing the show. I'm going to continue doing it. And most folks, I didn't get a chance this morning because I was doing show prep and I was doing some other things to put a shout out to people that I am live on the air, and I'm trying to get over here and look at my live stream on my laptop. If you see me looking over here every now and then, that is what I'm doing. I'm trying to get that out there and just hit the share buttons on the live stream. And I'm just kind of curious to see what it's looking like. I can't have the volume up or anything because there is a time delay. I know I fixed the microphone. I had some settings set up to where if it didn't, it's showing me offline, but I'm actually online. Okay, let me hit my events. I'm still learning how to do all this, folks. Here we go. I have the live stream coming up right now. I just want to see how it looks from your perspective. I won't keep it up all the time because I'm not that narcissistic. He's a pretty handsome devil there. I don't know if if the computer's gonna be able to handle all this. It looks like it might be pausing a little bit, but we're gonna go for it, and we'll see what happens. I did put a show description up there. I just want to get over and share this with folks on Facebook and on Twitter, mainly on Facebook and Twitter, but mainly on Facebook. Hang on a second, folks. Let me type in here. We are live. Aha! We are live on YouTube. Okay, let's get that one up there. And indulge me just for one more second to put up for Facebook or for Twitter. Just let folks know that I am live. And hopefully they'll know when I share that up there, especially on Twitter, that they'll know that I'm live on there. So, wow, this is great. This is one of my dreams coming true that I'm able to do this. I am going to shut that that off for right now, so I can monitor my microphone and everything coming through on the Audacity. All right, folks. Today on the show, I'm going to talk about protectors of the environment with huge, huge question marks, like Donald Trump would say. This is huge, and really delve into this. Really get into what these people are actually doing, what with the protest, the environment, the whole 9 yards, the whole shooting match, what they're actually doing, and it's amazing to me how these people are getting a pass. It's amazing to me how these people aren't being taken to task on these things. It really is amazing to me that these people are basically getting a pass on everything they're doing out there. I have, like I said, I've been talking about my friends on Facebook, talking about what's going on and how they're defending what's going on out there. And to me, I think it's indefensible what these people are doing. What these people out there are doing to the environment. They're supposed to be protectors of the environment. They're supposed to be Captain Planet type. So we're going to talk about that a little bit here in the show. I don't want to give all of it away. Not that I want to give away any of my secrets, but I don't want to give everything away that we're going to be talking about here like I do sometimes. I blather on. The one thing I do want to point out that I wasn't going to get into too much on the show, but I have an article here about a transgender activist. Your child is not at risk from transgender child. You are projecting. When I read that headline, folks, it's a CNS News headline by Susan Jones, I about fell over. We're projecting people who think the transgender community is okay. That people, if you're born a guy or born a girl, it's okay, and it's not. To me, it's not normal for you to think that, oh, I'm a girl trapped in a boy's body or vice versa. I think that's abnormal. And a lot of psychologists would say the same thing too. Matter of fact, a lot of them do say the same thing, that this is abnormal activity. And yet the part of the headline that got me was the projecting. We're projecting our fears on our kids. What? Almost every virtue signaling parent, most of them are female. I haven't seen too many men out there that have been doing this. Most of them have been female, are projecting their virtue signaling on their kids when it comes to the transgender agenda. That a 5 or 6 year old kid say, oh, I'm a boy trapped in a girl's body, or I'm a girl trapped in a boy's body. They know this. Folks, that wasn't even that was so far off my radar. We're talking light years away when I was 5 or 6 years old. I was more concerned about when at school, when our next recess was, so we could go out and play. And then in summertime, what I was going to fill my summertime up, which wasn't difficult. When you live on a farm, it isn't hard to fill up your summer with things to do around the farm. You know, I'm not talking about working either. I'm talking about exploring things. I'm talking about doing other things. So it amazes me how these people, these folks that want to virtue signal to the rest of the world, saying, "Look how good a person I am because I'm allowing my child to do such and such, and I'm projecting my thoughts on this child." And folks, I think that's so wrong on so many levels. I really do. And if you think you're a girl trapped in a guy's body, or you're a guy trapped in a girl's body, honestly, and I know I'm going to get in trouble for this, you need to seek some professional help. You absolutely do. And folks, not that and look, I don't want to conflate the two issues, but it's the same way. And this issue came up with Milo Yiannopoulos, his comments about pedophilia, and this has sort of brought his world down. And I'm not joyous over that. I'm not laughing at him at that. You know, I do feel kind of sorry for the guy because of his way of thinking. And it's no different than pedophilia, that these adult men think that they have a right, and it's okay that they have sexual relations with very young children. It's called pedophilia. I maybe should have gave a warning there, but you know, most of my audience is pretty mature. Even the children who listen to it are pretty mature. And that to me is a mental sickness, is a mental illness. You're thinking that way, and you need to seek help. In our country, folks, we're too much of the time people are out there virtue signaling. What do I mean by that? What I mean is they think whatever the cause du jour is of the day, that as long as they signal the right intentions, the right ideology, that they're going to be accepted in their minds. They're going to be accepted by the rest of the country because they are doing this. And to me, that's fake and phony. That really is. That's fake and phony when you have to project. I'm going to use a term on the show this morning. Today's word is project. When you have to do that to make yourself feel good, there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you that you're projecting, you're signaling your virtues. And my thing with signaling virtues is a lot of times I'm not even sure the people know what they're doing or why they're doing it. You don't just signal your virtues. You have to live your virtues. They have to be a part of your life. Virtues have to be a part of your life. They're part of your basic makeup as far as your principles. And you don't go around signaling your virtues. You go around living your virtues. You support and you defend your virtues. You don't go around signaling, look how good a person I am because I allow my children to decide what sexuality they are. I don't support the biological sexuality of my children. I allow them to make up their own minds of what they're going to be. Folks, with transgenderism, getting back to this real quick, if you're born a boy, you have all the biological parts of a boy, you're a boy. And that needs to be supported. That absolutely does. If you were born a girl and you have all the female parts, that needs to be supported as well. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with parents reinforcing that their kids are okay, that you are a boy. You're not something else trapped in a boy's body. You are a boy. Do you have certain feelings you deal with? Absolutely. We're creatures. We're human beings of feelings. We all have feelings, folks, and we have to work through them. But to continue to confuse children over their quote unquote gender roles, I think is a type of child abuse. I really do. And parents who do not support their biological identity of their children, I think are doing a very big disservice to their children. I really do. Our country and our society is confused enough already without parents confusing their children even more. And that folks, that's the bottom line of that. You know, that's the bottom line. We shouldn't be confusing our kids. We should be encouraging them. We should be supporting them in their sexuality. If they're a boy, we support them as a boy. If they're a girl, we support them as a girl. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with girls, and there's nothing wrong with boys, and there's nothing wrong with either one of them being who they are as far as their biological identity. I think it's a great thing that girls are different than boys and boys are different than girls. And to confuse the two, especially at very, very young ages, where that should be sexuality should be the last thing on a 6-year-old's mind. The very last thing on a 6-year-old mind. We are not allowing our children here in the United States and frankly in other parts of the world, we're not allowing our children to grow up. We're not allowing our children to be normal. And there's a lot of people out there, well, your normal may not be my normal. That's true. My normal may be different than your normal, but there are societal norms out there. And we seem to be going at a breakneck speed to do away with all these societal norms. We really are. And that's a shame. That is a shame that we're doing that. All right, folks, today's show is being brought to you by Marbles the Brain Store. You like playing games? You like playing games with your family and friends? I'm not talking about mind games. I'm talking about actual board games and things you can do and play with each other as far as these games to help your cognitive skills. And that's why they call themselves the Brain Store. You play these games and it builds up your cognitive skills, your logic skills, and your gaming skills. If you like what you hear on the Dan Clemens Show, please go to danclemenshow.com and click on the Marbles the Brain Store widget. You get free shipping over items over any purchases $19.99 and over. They have some fantastic deals going on, and quite frankly, folks, these games are well built and will last a lifetime if taken care of. So if you like what you hear on the Dan Clemens Show, please go over and log on to the danclemenshow.com and click on the widget. And while you're enjoying playing, you're building your mind. You don't even know it. Today's daily Bible reading comes from the book of Philippians, the epistle to the Philippians, chapter 1, verses 15 through 18. Some indeed preach Christ even from envy and strife, and some also from goodwill. The former preach Christ from selfish ambition, not sincerely, supposing to add affliction to my chains, but the latter out of love, knowing that I am appointed for the defense of the gospel. What then? Only that in every way, whether in pretense or in truth, Christ is preached, and in this I rejoice. Yes, I will rejoice. Paul always had, and I love this about Paul, Paul always had a positive attitude when it comes to the scriptures. And I'm not saying he didn't get after folks. I'm just saying when this particular occasion here, when he's talking about people who were preaching Christ for selfish ambitions or reasons, he was still rejoicing that Christ was being preached. And through proper teaching, people can be taught what the gospel is and what it means. Today's quote meal comes from Paul Tillich, Tillich. The first duty of love is to listen. The first duty of love is to listen. And folks, I think in our world today, we have way too many people that are listening to reply instead of listening to understand. And there's a huge difference in that. And there's a huge difference in the way that people can be approached like that. And as far as your views, you know, if you're truly listening to understand, I think people appreciate that. And I think people know that you're listening to understand. Today's short Bible lesson comes from, and folks, if you're watching this live on YouTube, on the live stream, you're going to notice me looking over and reading. I don't have a teleprompter yet. Those things are coming down the road. I know I can build an inexpensive one, but my desk isn't set up yet for that. Eventually I will get there. So if you're annoyed by me turning my head, I do apologize for that, but I got to read this stuff. I'm not going to print papers out and read this. I have it on a monitor. Cotton Candy Christianity. And this is by Focus Press. Savannah Cottrell is the author of this. And she posted this the 21st of this month. Faith is not cotton candy. I know this because I know how cotton candy works. In fact, I'm sure a lot of us do. Let's give a bit of back history. I remember going to Walt Disney World as a child. Even in my family's recent visits, we've always made a point to visit the Main Street confectionery at the Magic Kingdom. We usually visit the candy shop specifically for the cotton candy. It was a delight made of pink or blue spun sugar, and we made sure to get a few bags. Ones to eat right then and ones to save at the hotel for later. But we couldn't save the cotton candy for long because one, we didn't let it sit for long without eating it, and two, cotton candy gets old and hard and stale if it's not eaten in a few days after it's made. But here's the thing about cotton candy. Once we did eat it, it only lasted a few seconds. Each bite disintegrated just like the last one, and before we knew it, the bags we shared were gone. It was a fleeting pleasure, but a pleasure nonetheless. Dear readers, faith is not like that at all. And neither is the love of God has for us. Neither is Jesus' intercession for us in heaven. Neither are God's promises for us, and neither is the gift of salvation given to us. Let's take a look exactly how faith isn't like cotton candy. Cotton candy looks, tastes, but lasts only a moment. Cotton candy's looks and taste last but a moment, but faith is not so. Cotton candy is quite literally spun sugar. Sugar dissolves. As such, cotton candy, as wonderful and delightful and sweet as it is, only lasts a short time before quite literally melting in our mouths. I'm gonna stop the reading there. Just reading this article has knocked up my sugar points on my blood sugar about 5 to 10 points. I'm just letting you guys know, thinking about cotton candy. Faith in God is far more than anything we can dream of. In fact, it's far from imaginary. It's real, and we can lean on it in our brightest and darkest hours. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Psalms 46:1. Cotton candy is sugary without much substance. Faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1 is widely considered as the standard definition of faith for Christians, and for good reason. This verse begins an entire chapter of a faith of Hall of Fame of those who have had faith in God long before we came into existence. Faith did not come easy to these people. However, Abraham had to give up everything, including his homeland and his own name, to go to a land God would show him. Hebrews 11:8-9. Sarah had a son in spite of her old age. Hebrews 11:11. Rahab had to place her trust in men she did not know to save her when the time came for the city to be destroyed and be in the hands of God's people. Hebrews 11:31. And that's just to name a few. But God did give them everything he promised them. But did God give them everything he promised them? Absolutely. Something that's fleeting can't do that for us, but God sure can. We can be assured of that. Cotton candy is not nutritious in the slightest. God's word is the bread of life. Cotton candy is that candy. It's not meant for every day. In fact, I think the last time I ate cotton candy was in Disney World, and that was about 4 years ago. If we had cotton candy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, not only would we probably crash from all the sugar, but it wouldn't help our health in the long run. Consider the Samaritan woman as well. Jesus knew that she had a troubled past, but he offered her the living water anyway. John 4:1-26. Also consider that the day after Jesus fed the 5,000, he explained to the crowd that he was the bread of life. And though he wanted to tell them that there was something even better than the food that they were given. John 26:22-59. God's word and his promises and love for us satisfy us greater than anything in the world can. At the end of the day, cotton candy and faith are popular or polar opposites. While there's nothing wrong with enjoying the little things, we need to remember that faith is far from small, insignificant, or fleeting. It won't go the way of cotton candy goes. We can rest assured that our faith in God will lead us heavenward. And again, this is by Savannah Cottrell from focuspress.org. And that's our short Bible lesson for the day. I just want to say one thing here. Sometimes I get folks checking into the chat room, and they check in early in the show. And I know some folks, when they hear me talking about the Bible scriptures and stuff like that, they think the show is nothing but about Bible, and it's not. I do this as something that I want to do to help share my faith on a daily basis with my listeners. And I think it's important that we do share a little bit of our faith with each other. And this is part of how I do that. Now, on to the rest of the show. All right. We did talk about the transgender. I'm going to leave that alone for now. I'll have a link up in the show notes page to that article that I was talking about. I just want to talk about the Dakota Access pipeline. Now, I have several stories here about this, but the one thing that I've been doing in my chat rooms, and I got to take a sip of coffee here real quick. If you noticed, this is the Back to Basic with Dan Clements coffee mug. I just had it made up at cafepress.com just to see what it looked like. I'm working on, or I'm not working on it. I'm getting a company to work on a logo for me. I got certain criteria, and I haven't seen one yet that I really like. And when I do, I'll know it. It's one of those things. So I'm waiting to do that, to get another coffee cup. I do like these big white coffee cups. They're like the old restaurant coffee cups. You know, you get a big full cup of coffee to drink, and they're fantastic. It fits my coffee warmer on the desk perfectly. And trust me, I'll tell you, when I get a logo that I like and put it on there, I will advertise these to the folks to be part of my coffee club, I guess, if you want to call it that. We'll have some type of name for it. And I'm actually, when I do that, this is some of the things, I got notes all over the place about things I'd like to do on the show here or with the show. When I do that, I want to partner up with some coffee bean people, as it were, some coffee roasters and that, maybe locally, maybe ones that are just on the internet right now, that we can sort of co-help each other, as it were. But that's something down the road, hopefully not too far down the road. Just like going full-time on YouTube may not be too far down the road. Like I said, just real quick here, some show notes. Today's just a test. I set it up like I would normally do a show with all the headlines, you know, the title of the show, the episode number, the whole 9 yards. So that'll be something that'll we'll maintain even if we do get away from Blog Talk Radio and go strictly to YouTube. So just a little side note there. Now, getting back to the news of the day, I have been in discussions and criticizing some of the thoughts and ideas of my friends on Facebook about the Dakota Access Pipeline. Now, she lives out in South Dakota, about 6 hours away from Standing Rock. And the thing that I see, and it's not just her, it's a lot of comments that I see on the internet, in chat rooms, and mainly, I don't get into chat rooms much anymore, although every once in a while, a lot of times I'll go down to the bottom of an article, like on cnsnews.com, and I'll start reading the comments. Some are in supportive of the article, no matter what it is, and some aren't. And there's a lot of comments on this one. The Dakota Access Pipeline can't clear the protesters. It took a while to get them out. There was no, all the news I saw this morning, there was no physical confrontation except for a few holdouts. I think they say in here was like they arrested 46 people who refused to get out of the camps so they could be cleaned up. This place, folks, that place at Standing Rock, the protest camp, is an environmental disaster. And I'm sorry, you can't blame it on the blizzards. I mean, you look at the pictures now, there's hardly any snow on the ground at all. And these people have been here for weeks, and they still haven't cleared that camp out. I'm sorry. How much time do you need to clean your junk? And last night on the news, when I got home, I was watching this. There was a lot, I won't say half the camp, but there was a lot of huge fires in that camp where protesters leaving set fire to the structures rather than take them with them. These are the protectors of the environment, folks. These are the Captain Planet types that want to save the planet, want to save the water and all this kind of stuff. And what do? They trash the land where they're protesting. And on their way out, they trash it even more. And all this junk's left there for somebody else to pick up the tab and to do the work to clean up. And this is something that's happened time and time again. And honestly, folks, I'm getting very tired of liberals in our country making excuses for these folks. Oh, it was an unexpected blizzard, folks. You're talking about North Dakota. You're talking about the northern Great Plains, where there is nothing out there to obstruct storms. You're talking about wintertime in the northern hemisphere. What do you expect winter's going to bring in the northern hemisphere out in the Great North Plains? Winter storms. And trust me, I tell you, folks, I didn't drive in North Dakota. I've driven through South Dakota, through snowstorms, and they can turn into blizzards very quickly just by the wind picking up the dry, fluffy snow. And it gets pretty nasty out there because there's nothing to block the wind. And I'm sorry, couldn't these people pick up a radio and listen to see what the weather forecast was going to be? And why did they have to eye the place? Why couldn't they just come out there on a daily basis, stand there, protest, and go to hotels or something? Well, I'll tell you why. Most of the people out there didn't have the money, don't have jobs. I'm serious. Most of them, from the reports I've been reading on CNS News, Daily Wire, Daily Caller, a lot of these folks were young people that didn't have jobs. I don't know, other than being paid to be there by some George Soros type group, I don't know how they afford to stay there as long as they did. But they did. You and I would lose our jobs. You and I literally would not have a job to go back to if we did that. And that's why most conservatives don't go out and protest. They may go on a Saturday protest like the Tea Parties did on Saturdays, because that's usually an off day, or they may take a day's vacation to go to a protest, but they don't occupy a place. They go, they make their voices heard, and they go back home and do their job. And if they're like me, they do political commentary, they'll write letters, they'll email, they'll leave phone messages with their representatives. Like I said yesterday on the show, the best way I found is either leave a message on the your representative's website, which they have a place to do that, or go down to their local office. And even if they're not there, the staffers are more than willing to sit down and talk with you. And yes, they do. They do the representatives listen to their staffers on people who actually physically come in. They take the time out of their lives to come in and sit down and talk with them. They take that more seriously than all the emails and all the phone calls combined. And am I saying anything against these folks from the Indivisible group about making the phone calls and stuff like that? No. But I tell you what, you make all the phone calls to Lou Barletta you want, and condemn him or send him all the emails you want, condemning his actions and stuff like that. I'll walk into his office, and my office visit holds more weight with Lou Barletta than all your phone calls and emails combined. I'm serious. It does, because they take that seriously, that you took time out of your life to come down and have a word with them. Even if it's a word of encouragement or just a question, they add more weight to that because you took your time out of your life instead of sitting behind a computer or a phone and clogging, especially with the indivisible movement. They're doing it for the purposes of clogging up their emails and their voicemails so that other people can't get in, just like the town halls. They get in there and disrupt these and stomp on it and suppress other citizens' right of free speech and redress of their government. And for what? Just to be seen. And quite honestly, I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. I don't blame you for maybe not listening to their emails or their phone calls, or even shutting them off like people claim that the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, did. I don't blame them. If all you're doing is coming in there and causing havoc and creating havoc by clogging the phone lines and the voicemail, I wouldn't either. I just go in, I have a VoIP system. If my voicemail gets too clogged up with phone calls, I just go on the website, hit a button, says delete them all, boom, they're gone. They're gone. I don't do that, but I mean, I could. And the way voicemail systems are today, most of you can do that too anyway. But getting back to the Dakota Access Pipeline, they cleared the protesters out, these environmental protectors. I hate even saying that word. They're not protectors. They're fraud and phonies. These Captain Planet types. They don't give two hoots. They don't give two hoots about the environment. And if you look, and this is the thing that I don't understand, the information is out there. One, and we shared it on the show. I put a PDF link up on show a couple weeks ago, and I'll try to remember to dig that out and put the link on. There was an environmental impact study. I didn't download the whole thing. I downloaded the summary. A lot of the people that I've been talking to on Facebook and Twitter and looking at comments have only seen the summary. They didn't go back and look at the environmental impact study, which was done, which is very lengthy. I don't want to read the whole thing. I just read the summary. Well, they're taking the summary as, well, this is your environmental impact study. This is nothing. Go back and try again. They already wasted, in my opinion, millions of dollars on the initial environmental impact study doing that. And then if you look at the maps, now you've heard me say on the show before, I do not believe the federal government should be owning any land. You know, there's nothing in the Constitution to authorize them to do so. Put that aside for a second, because they do own land right now until we change it in the future. The land that the pipeline is going to be crossing is federal land. It's not reservation land, and it's not privately held land. It is federal land. And if you look at the cross-section map, this pipeline is going to be buried well. I mean, hundreds of feet below the water table and below this river or creek, whatever it is, feeding this reservoir. And it's going to be encased. I mean, they've taken all these precautionary steps to make sure that if there's a rupture there, it's not going to contaminate the drinking water. And yet, that's not good enough for folks. And I just suspect, my own personal opinion and observation, I just suspect these protesters are out there just to be protesting because there's a president in the White House that they do not like and they do not agree with. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. And I almost think, and this is my personal belief, that while it's like the magician, you got something in this hand, and you have the people looking at this hand, but they don't see what's happening in this hand. We have all this issues at the Dakota Access Pipeline. We have all these protesters, this scorched earth policy of these and Captain Planet types out there that are literally destroying that little piece of earth on federal land by their protesting. And you hear very little about the XL pipeline. You hear very little about the XL pipeline. And honestly, I think that's a little bit by design. I'm not saying people are colluding together, but no one's actually in the government talking about the XL pipeline right now, although I've been watching the news and they're going ahead with certain things, and it seems to be on track to where they're going to cross the border in Canada and get the tar sands oil and take that down to Louisiana. I know because I've seen and these are unconfirmed articles that I've actually seen in passing, but part of President Trump's economic plan could possibly, I mean, this has been just talk, you know, amongst, I don't know if it's amongst staffers or supporters that were very close during the campaign, but the way Donald Trump is pro-business, I can believe this to a certain extent until I get some proof. I'll trust, but I'll verify that he's going to do away with the executive order on the moratorium of building more oil refineries in the country. Now, when that happens, and I think it will, I think President Trump, he'll get to it eventually, take away that moratorium on building new oil refineries in this country, which we need them because we have a growing population. Until somebody comes up with a viable alternative energy source that is 24/7, 365, nonstop. Oil right now is the engine of growth for any economy in the country, in any country in the world, but especially ours. So until they come up with a viable, and this is something I've always said all along too, they spend all this money, all this time and energy on busting on the coal industry, the fossil fuel industry altogether, but coal and oil and natural gas, that wouldn't that money be spent wiser spent, or what more wisely spent, as it were, to research a viable alternative to fossil fuels that's environmentally friendly? Oh, we have it. We have wind and solar. Folks, that's not 24/7. It's not scalable. I'll tell you what is, and for some reason the environmentalists aren't going this way: hydrogen. The most abundant element in the universe. And we have so much of it on planet Earth in the form of the oceans. It is an untapped, almost limitless energy source. Because you know what happens when you either burn hydrogen like a gas or you put it through a fuel cell? You get water vapor out. Guess what's in water vapor? H2O. H2O. It's water. But you see very little people going towards that. I understand the coal and oil industry not wanting to get into that type of research because they're so heavily invested and in debt sometimes because of their research into fossil fuels, either oil, coal, or natural gas. I understand that. Now, there's some in the past, I think Shell was one of them, and I think Chevron was another one that was doing some research. Maybe an Exxon, I may have my companies mixed up, had some R&D into hydrogen. But until you educate the American people, that may not happen. And the other thing with hydrogen too, that is going to be very hard for the energy industry to swallow, is that as long as I have a tap, and Japan has actually created a home energy system of fuel cells, very expensive, that you just hook it up to your tap water, it electrolyzes the water and takes the hydrogen out, stores it in stores a little bit of it, doesn't store all the, enough to it's got to constantly do the electrolysis to get the hydrogen, but it goes through the fuel cell and creates electricity for your home. The problem with most American homes, we're very hoggish on our electricity, and we're not very conservative on our electrical use. But if someone comes up, some wisecracking entrepreneur comes up with a system that's inexpensive, does a good job, and all you got to do is hook it up to your garden hose, and voila, you got all the power you want for your house. And if you got an electric car, you want to charge your electric car, or if you want to electrolyze water and store it and use it like a gaseous form in an internal combustion engine. The problem with that is the energy companies aren't going to make a dime off of that. You're going to be driving around on the road without having to pay them, and they're very loath to go that way. And honestly, I believe through lobbyists and stuff like that, the governments are going to be loath to also do that when it comes to that type of energy. But I give very little acknowledgement to the protesters of these fossil fuel companies, because all they do is protest and act up, and they never, I think their money would be better spent in research, to be quite honest with you. But that's just not the way they do things. That's capitalism. And they don't like capitalists, because capitalists are bad, as opposed to socialists. But getting back to the Dakota Access Pipeline, I think it's hilarious that these people are very concentrated on that, and you hear very little in the mainstream media about the XL pipeline. And I've been looking into it, and things are going forward on that. They don't, honestly, I don't know what the biggest controversy is over this. I really don't. Why the Dakota Access Pipeline is more important than the XL pipeline as far as protesting. People say I'm clueless about this, but I don't get it, Big Dan. Is what they used to when I was at Camel Express as a dispatcher, I was the biggest guy in the office, and had a couple drivers call me Big Dan. And the one, he's down in Texas now, Mr. Ramey. He's always calling me. He's like, you get on the phone and something be strange or something like that, and he didn't understand. He said, I don't get it, Big Dan. Or someone do something stupid. He said, I don't get it, Big Dan. I didn't get it either half the time, you know, that these people were acting up or doing something strange. So I don't get these people. You know, I don't get what they're protesting about. It's not on native land. It's not on privately held land. From all the indications I've seen, all the, you know, what they're doing, how far they're burying the pipeline, which isn't typical. How far under the ground they're actually burying the pipeline is not typical, and it's more of a safeguard than it is anything else. And quite frankly, like I said, until people do some research and make a viable alternative energy source for our country, fossil fuels where it's at for right now. It really is. And I keep getting something popping up in my AVG. Oh, I hate pop-ups and programs like that. If I want something, I'll go get it. But getting back to the trash, this has been a modus operandi, a MO of the left. From all the way back to 2008, I didn't save the links to this. I was just looking it up because I remember the stories. President Obama's first inauguration. When they were done with that and they went home, that place was filthy. And there was actually some wisecracking photographer out there took pictures of all the trash on the ground laying around these empty trash cans that were actually posted all over the place. I thought that was funny, that these people were that lazy, they just dropped the stuff on the ground instead of putting it into the trash can. Were they trying to create jobs there? Is that how socialists create jobs? It's insane. It is insane. And folks, Occupy Wall Street. I don't have to go back and get the articles for that. You remember the pictures and the videos that were taken, how those parks in New York City, especially down Wall Street, were just environmentally decimated by these Captain Planet wannabes. And for what? We're protesting capitalism. No, you weren't protesting capitalism. You were protesting crony capitalism. And you didn't even get that straight. You didn't even get that straight. And then we see the Women's March. And I let me get my quotes up there. The quote Women's March in D.C. back in January after the inauguration of President Donald Trump. And you can't call it a woman's march because, in my opinion, the real women of America were disinvited. Those women who take care of their families, and I'm not saying that all the women in the Women's March don't take care of their families. Don't get me wrong on that, folks. What I'm saying is these other women that were disinvited were pro-life. They believed in life. They believed in their family. They supported their husbands as their husbands support them. They support their children. They reinforce their children's gender identity. They don't go into all this vague and vogue virtue signaling. They don't have time for it. They're busy being mothers and housewives. And I said this before on the show, and I'll say it again, folks. I wouldn't want to trade places with my wife. She works way harder than I do. And it's not to say when I come home, I sit down in my chair and kick my feet up, and she brings me my lemonade or iced tea and my slippers and stuff like that. And I don't smoke a pipe, so she can't bring that to me. I'm not saying I do that. I do help. My wife will tell you I do laundry. I'll do dishes. I cook. I still love to cook. And if I had a full picture of me here, which you can't see, my bottom part, you would know that I like to eat what I cook. Although I am losing some of that weight. I seem to lose it up there first instead of down here. But, you know, I'm getting off track here. The real women of America were disinvited to this Women's March on D.C. And quite frankly, I think the real women of America, and the ones that are pro-life, that actually had a march on the day that Roe v. Wade was passed, I don't think they would want to been there with all the vulgarity that was going on, with all the, and I do have a question for the women, since I'm talking about the Women's March and the piles of trash that was left behind there, as my theme is for today. All these women, these virtue signaling women and men, there was men there too at the Women's March, we're talking how nasty Donald Trump is for making one comment, one hot mic comment, which he apologized for and said that's not who he is today. And I take him at his word for it. One hot mic comment, and he's a misogynist, he's a sexist pig. And yet, who? It's mostly women from the studies I've seen, or from the actual ticket purchases and DVD purchases. 50 Shades of Grey and 50 Shades Grayer or something like that. It's the second movie. Who is buying the tickets to the movies, the books, and the DVDs of this filth that a multimillionaire billionaire portrayed on the movie, having his way with a woman? These 50 Shades of Grey and 50 Shades Grayer or something like that. I have no plan on watching it. I don't support it or whatever. Who's buying these? Women. I'd love to see the split between pro-lifers and the women that marched, like Ashley Judd, I'm a nasty woman, she says. I'd like to see that split, to see, because most of the women I know in my circle, and I won't say circle of influence, but my acquaintances, don't even want to see that. Didn't want to buy the book, didn't want to see the movie, don't care to, because they know what it is. It's filth. So I'm just kind of wondering I'm scratching my head, who's buying and who's watching that movie. Just a thought I'm putting out there, folks. Just a thought I'm putting out there. But getting back to the trash, the Women's March, and you can compare the both of them. The Women's March and the real Women's March a week or so later, the pro-life march, total opposite of what was left behind. The Women's March, just throw everything on the ground. Someone else will pick it up later. Okay? I'd hate to see their homes, quite frankly, but I digress. The real Women's March, in my opinion, the pro-life march, they used if they left anything behind, they put in the trash receptacles, and any signs that they took with them, they took home with them. You didn't see them laying all over the place. You didn't see the trash cans overstuffed with signs and signage. As a matter of fact, you didn't see the trash cans overstuffed too much, a few of them, at the Women's March, but most of it was laying on the ground. All these signs these women brought. Yeah, real environmental protectors, real caring about the environment, these liberals. And it just, like I said, we could go on and on and on about this. We could literally talk a week about all this liberal hypocrisy that goes on when it comes to the environment. We really could. One of my affiliate advertisers on the show, We Would Watches, very conservationist minded. They're not Captain Planet types. I've seen very little commercials also, although I have seen some TV commercials about it. They do tout that they do reforestry plantings and stuff like that. But I think that's part of their business model. I think it's okay. You put that out front, that's part of your business model. I know there was a restaurant. Now they're retired and they sold the restaurant, but while Spess's was in business in Sunbury, part of their business model was they weren't open on Sundays. And a lot of people grumbled about that. Regular customers of Spess's grumbled about, I'd love to go there on Sunday to have a meal. They got really good food, but the Spess's felt that their Christianity was more important than their business, and they wanted their employees to be allowed to make the choice whether or not they were going to go to church or stay home, whatever. But they were going to let them have the choice, not force them to come into work to keep a job. And there's other businesses like that out there. And I think Chick-fil-A is like that also. I haven't really checked on it, didn't really care to, but I think Chick-fil-A is not open on Sundays either. And that's part of their business model. That's great. That's fine if they want to do that. Matter of fact, more businesses than not that I know. Hilscher's, another one, Hilscher's Country Store down in Port Trevorton, Mennonite owned. They're not open on Sundays. They're not open. Now, our local hardware store and Lowe's, they're open on Sundays. But Hilscher's, they're flourishing down there. So being closed on Sundays didn't hurt them a bit. You know, I'm just putting this out because of the mentality, you know, that goes to the ideas and the thinking of liberals. These liberal women that went to this women's march didn't think twice about trashing up the place and make somebody else clean it up. These protesters out at Standing Rock, hibernating there, didn't think twice about trashing the place up. And I know what my friends on Facebook, specifically a particular friend, is going to say, well, they didn't give them enough time to clear the trash out. Well, all the videos I saw, they were still protesting when they should have been cleaning the trash out. They were still protesting. They weren't doing any work to get the trash out. Sorry. You can't have it both ways. You just can't have it both ways. And so these people were just totally ignorant when it came to the environment. And if you want to try to support that, that's your right to do so. But be prepared to be criticized for that support because of the hypocrisy of these protesters. And to be quite honest with you, from everything I've read from the, you know, like I said, didn't read the full environmental impact, but there was one made. So there's that accusation, well, they didn't really do an environmental impact study. Okay, just because the environmental impact study didn't come out with the results you wanted doesn't necessarily mean that it wasn't a proper environmental impact study. If you think it wasn't, take it to court. Don't just stand after protest. Find the facts, get the facts, and take it to court. I know there's plenty of nonprofit environmental organizations out there that would be glad to help you with that. And that's something that's kind of strange to me. I mean, I'm just thinking out loud here that if there was something wrong with the environmental impact study of the Corps of Engineers, don't you think they would have taken that to the court already? Don't you think that that would have been something that was done already? I mean, please. But I looked very cursorily, but I didn't see anything. So that tells me that maybe there isn't anything wrong with the environmental impact study, so they couldn't go that route. So they went the other route. So there's a lot of inconsistencies throughout this whole thing. And I'm sorry, my friends out in Dakota and folks that listen to the show, you know, if you think differently than that, that's your right to think differently than that. But folks, look at the big picture. Don't look at just the little minor things. Look at the big picture of what's going on here. Look at the big picture. And this is something, let's get back to the Trump administration real quick here in the last couple of minutes here. I want to make a couple comments about this. This is one of the reasons, not the only reason, this is one of the reasons why liberals and the left do not like Donald Trump and his administration, because he's looking at the big picture. He's not like President Obama, who was very myopic on the way he looked at things. He looked at one issue at a time. He spent time on that, and then he left that. Not understanding or caring how these issues might interact with another issue. How shutting down coal mines and coal-producing electrical plants would impact the unemployment rate. On one breath, he's putting people out of business and out of jobs and on the unemployment line. The next minute, he's touting how good his job recovery is. You can't have both. You can't have both at the same time. I'm sorry. It just doesn't work that way, folks. It doesn't. And so Donald Trump is looking at the big picture. And I don't think he's trying to accomplish too much at one time. I just think from that standpoint of looking at the big picture, seeing how everything's interacting with each other, he's trying to do as much as he can in an orderly fashion as he can, and taking things out of the government, like this transgender issue, taken out of the federal government. The federal government has no business ruling on this or governing over that, and putting it back to the states. He thinks it's a state rights issue. And to my libertarian friends out there to keep putting this fake news out about Donald Trump and drugs and stuff like that, I've actually heard his own words that one of the ways he's going to put hurting on the cartels is to possibly look into legalizing drugs. Now, people have very strong opinions about that. I have my own opinions about it, which, we can always do a show on that, which I might do in the near future. But the fact of the matter is, the way to get the cartels out of the drug business is to legalize drugs and make it unprofitable for them to be in the drug business. In the same way with marijuana. Well, folks, you hear the great resource. I love the
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.